Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. And now the Friday Crime Report. Oakland, California, Sunday, September 7th, 2025. Barbara Lee, the mayor of Oakland, has been as useful as a screen door at a submarine. She used to be a member of Congress, and as you can see, she accomplished absolutely nothing, so now she's been demoted to mayor of Oakland, where she continues to do absolutely nothing. On September 7th, her staff informed her about a large number of threatening emails sent from a Google account. They received an email that was a hate-filled screed against Oakland's black residents. Whoever sent it threatened to kill the black Oaklanders, as well as governmental officials, including Barbara Lee. The threats continued for weeks because law enforcement takes these kind of things seriously, don't you know? On September 21st, there were more email threats, this time directly at Mayor Lee. "I'm going to torture and murder you," it said. Even that didn't lead to an immediate response from law enforcement. It would still be another 2 weeks before they finally got around to arresting this guy on October 7th after getting information provided to them by Google. The suspect has been identified as 45-year-old David Picorni. He was booked into the Santa Rita jail. Now, this is after the Charlie Kirk shooting, when we're told that these kind of threats have to be taken seriously, so you can guess what happened next. This guy was immediately given $70,000 bail, but he has a hearing set for October 23rd. And since he has racial immunity from law, the white media is already starting in with saying that he has to be crazy. They started off whitewashing by talking about his father, Gary Picorni, who said that his son hadn't lived in the Bay Area for years and he didn't even have a known address for him. And you won't be surprised to learn this isn't this guy's first run-in with the law. His parents asked for a protection order against him in 2014 and 2015 after he violently threatened them and got into a physical altercation with his own father. He was taken to a mental health facility for that one. And just to show how good-natured he is, he told his parents to go back to Europe and die. Interestingly enough, when this Porkno character's parents were contacted about this, his father said he knew his son had been arrested, but he didn't know what for. Yeah, because all of this came out of the blue. Now, what else is interesting is that while there's no photos of him, his father certainly has a presence. For 36 years, Gary Picorni had been a city manager in 4 different cities across 3 different states. He retired in 2010 and lives in El Cerrito, so the altercations with his son and the restraining orders all happened after he was retired. So to me, that indicates the nexus for all this reprehensible behavior is El Cerrito. At this point, you're probably thinking, Jesus, what kind of racist place is this El Cerrito to be producing trash like this? I took a look, and El Cerrito is a town about 9 miles outside of Oakland. The population there is about 26,400 residents. The town has a 45% white population and only 4% black. That's ominous. And who is the leadership of El Cerrito? Here's a picture of their city council. The black woman in the middle wearing the black blazer, smiling the biggest and the widest? That's the mayor. And I know what you're thinking. Wait for it. So, you have a town where the city council is comprised of 2 Asians, 2 white people, and a black female mayor. This is their current political leadership. And the son of the former city manager is running around sending all kinds of racist threats to the nearest black enclave he can find. Now, what the hell has this mayor been doing this summer while all this has been going on? Why, she's been on Facebook posting self-aggrandizing messages about how she's the first openly out black lesbian mayor in the history of California. That's her priority while all this was going on. You know, these people who call themselves intersectional are having to reach farther and farther and farther to find something that they can claim as history-making. The first Asian this, the first transgender that, the first Hindi woman to be elected to the school board in Paducah, Kansas. What's next? The first one-eyed, one-horned, blind purple people eater to be head of the Pee Wee Football League? All these desperate attempts to take nothing and try to convince people that it's an important first. It's beyond belief. While this woman was busy patting herself on the back for getting elected to office, and while she was sticking up for what people do in the bedroom and who they do it with, one of her constituents' children was busy sending tons of threats against an entire town of people who look like her. But this is the problem with intersectionality. The people who talk that gibberish only do it because they think they're escaping blackness. That's all it is. Anytime, and I mean any, that you see someone talking about their sexuality, their mixed race, etc., their national origin, this is someone who's trying to advertise to the world that they don't want to define themselves as being black. It's meant to be a white flag of surrender to the rest of the world. Please don't hurt me. I give up. I promise to never make you feel uncomfortable by claiming to simply be black. I'll treat my black skin as an incidental characteristic. In fact, it's not even important. What's important is my sexual orientation or some other non-black descriptor. See, I'm no threat to you. And as this Weisinger woman sees it, it worked. She became mayor because she identified as something other than black. She's a hyphenated black. Black is merely an adjective, a modifier for her true identity, which is lesbian. That's how she presented herself. So this is why racist punks like this Picorni creep feel emboldened to pull stunts like this, because this is what tries to pass itself off as black leadership. People who don't even want to identify as black. Now, with individuals like this, El Cerrito doesn't need some dip-chawing, tobacco-chewing good old boy. They have a useless intersectional bootlick in charge, a melanated face that does nothing to fight white supremacy. The perfect tool. We'll continue with the moment of truth in just a moment, but first, a word from the official sponsor of Black Empowerment, Power Tools. There's no telling when something's going to come up, so make sure you carry your power tools at all times. You never know when you're going to need to bring the hammer down, or when you'll have some trash that needs to be blown away, or some obstacle that requires cutting down. Don't get caught empty-handed. Keep your hammer close by. Keep that leaf blower at the ready, and always carry your steel. Power tools, because no matter what your day job or side hustle may be, there's no excuse for not being ready to put in some work. And she's not alone. Barbara Lee should be on a warpath about all this, screaming about the need for an anti-black hate crime law. Barbara Lee and the rest of her former colleagues in the Congressional Black Caucus ought to be using this incident as a springboard to push for a federal anti-black hate crime law. That's what it should be. Local and state is okay, but it's not enough. It needs to be federal. At the very least, they're supposed to be doing what these other groups do, which is to demand that the hate crime laws for themselves be greatly expanded and that the punishments be made harsh as possible. After all, they're being directly targeted and threatened, and yet they're not doing anything. We saw what California's so-called Black Assembly Caucus did when it came to reparations. Those scumbags literally laughed in the faces of their own black voters and mocked them on camera as they helped Gavin Newsom to stonewall a measure to forward that policy. And you know who else isn't saying anything about all this? Kamala Harris. She began her legal and political career in Oakland, and she used it as a springboard to go across the Golden Gate Bridge into San Francisco. And you'll recall when she made her first failed bid for the presidency in 2020, she kicked off that abortion in Oakland. Because that's where it all began for her, right? Well, now that she's got nothing but free time on her hands, and her former CBC colleague and the town that gave her her start in politics are being threatened, you would think the former vice president would be issuing hard condemnations of this act. But she's not. In fact, she hasn't said anything. Now, if this was a synagogue in Oakland that was threatened, or if this was illegal aliens or transgender anything, then Kamala Harris would be on Twitter nonstop, or better yet, standing in front of cameras and demanding that the orange man do something. Instead, she's doing nothing because she understands what her role is. Bootlicks thinking that prostrating themselves before racist trash like Picorni will make them accepted by the dominant society because they'll be presenting themselves as unthreatening, they're fools. And if they do manage to get handed an elected office or some other patronage corporate position or other, if they can find a white benefactor, then they'll consider all their shameless butt-kissing to have been worth it, or as the shills and bootlicks like to say, a chess move. But the only safe place under white supremacy is fighting it. Depending on the enforcement arm of white supremacy to protect you is like depending on a wolf to protect a chicken coop. All he's doing is just making sure nobody else kills the chickens before he can. California is as racist as any red state. How many of my crime reports have been about some act of anti-black violence that's taken place there? The intentional engineered lack of black leadership is what emboldens creeps like this to do these things. White power spent decades using its wealth to install these tools whose job is merely to take up space, to be obstacles to our power by virtue signaling and squatting in this or that political office. And their standing around occupying space is not harmless. As long as they're in those positions, that means people who are actually going to do something are not. Well, these fools will never figure it out, but white power has already decided they have to go, and as this Parcorni character stated, it won't be at the ballot box. These sellouts have no survival instincts, but the rest of us do. Identifying these fools and voting them out, making sure that none of their pals can replace them, that's a legitimate act of political self-defense. And speaking of self-defense, we don't have to raise our hand and ask for permission to protect ourselves. The police are in most cases quietly supporting these race killers. At the very least, they're allowing them to operate. So these threats have to be seen for what they are. Terrorists announcing they're going to carry out an attack. We cannot depend on the thugs in blue because they're not just sympathetic to these race killers. In many cases, they're helping them. So we have to be proactive about personal protection, not just for ourselves, but for each other. Barbara Lee may think that because white power gave her a public sector job, that means that they can't do anything to her, but the rest of us know better. Because as we've seen in Buffalo and Charlottesville and Jacksonville, these white supremacists intend to do a lot more than just send some racist emails. So we have to be prepared to respond with more than just emails, too. And that's this week's Friday Crime Report. Keep your eyes open and stay on alert, because there's a lot worse criminals out there than the ones the white corporate media chooses to show you. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: John Harvin, Lamont Ingram, Najee95, Dia Williams, and Wesley Monroe. Salute to them, and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.